All right. Good evening. Welcome to episode 4 of Between Two Mats.
Welcome, welcome, friends.
I am Matt Childress, and you
And I
know
am Matt Turner.
Matt Turner, the one and the only.
Piglet.
And tonight, yeah, I say Piglet up in here. We got a few things we want to jump into tonight. In particular, we want to talk about the Street Fighter spoilers, and we want to talk about some of like the organized play results, and we're going to talk about any other announcements we got from Jasco, and we want to talk about what to do about deck list infractions and penalties and things like that. So should be a eventful evening. But Turner, did I leave anything out? Is there anything else that we're covering tonight?
I don't believe so. I
Okay.
think we're, I think we're all inclusive here for tonight. Um, Let me
And,
double check here. No, I
and
think no. We'll go ahead and get started. Get rolling with the show.
awesome. And as always, we'll be watching chat. So if you have any questions or anything that we say that you want to know more about, feel free to message us in there, and we'll be sure to check that out. Um, but yeah, I guess let's jump into it. So, Jasco announcements. Do we have any?
The only Jasco announcements that we have is Street Fighter spoilers
Yes,
starting to
sir.
come unto fold, and supposedly to be legal for Worlds, which is exciting. We're gonna get a new meta for the World Championships.
Yeah.
So
And correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is they said the set will be out at least 2 weeks before Worlds, so before Mother's Day weekend, so maybe beginning of May at the latest, end of April probably. But that what I had heard, and I don't know if this is official or not, but what I had heard is that if the set's looking like it's going to be cutting it that close, they'll do a full set spoiler at least 4 weeks before Worlds, so that way everyone has time to assimilate the information and really test for a solid
yeah,
month.
I would hope we get that at a minimum. I
Yeah,
mean, we're looking at right now Worlds being 2 months out. I
yeah,
would like to know the entire meta honestly, like 6 weeks out, I think is fair if you want the best players to win. Uh,
yeah.
you
Well,
know,
especially like if there's some random janky broken
yeah,
interaction,
and
you
if
know.
there's some kind of crazy stuff, yeah, you'd like to find it early and then see it at PTCs and but I guess we'll see. I also hope that the set doesn't release 2 weeks before because then it's still kind of hard to get cards like when the time the
Right,
world championship comes around because you might get your boxes but then it's a single scram and then like you can't find certain ultras or something that you need. So
right,
I would hope the set releases 4 weeks before a war before Worlds. So
right.
that would be the goal. So
Yeah,
that would be about April the 10th ish,
yeah. I think that's ambitious,
whatever that weekend
but
is.
that's just my guess. Because like I feel like if it were that close to being done with printing or to being in their warehouse, then we would have gotten a hard date already. Um, but
Yeah, I guess so. April 14th looks like the date that would be best because that would be one, two, three. That would be exactly 4 weeks. It's less than 30 days even before the World Championships. That's 28 days if
yeah,
the set releases on the 14th.
and
And 28 days is about how much time you need to get all the cards, especially out of a 200 card set, Matt. I mean,
yeah,
we got to have that set released, man.
yeah. Because you're gonna have starters and you're gonna have like the full set. And so far
Yeah,
they've revealed what was it, 18 characters that all presumably have support, and then there's Jury, which we saw, which I don't know if she's considered one of the other two on the end that they didn't fill in her character profile, maybe. But there's at least one more that we
yeah.
don't know about, if
I
not
know
two.
that Jury is the box topper. They did
Right.
confirm that.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like how they did the
Yeah,
Facebook picture update
I,
and all the character
my
select
guess
screen.
would be no because I feel like they would have updated a character
That's
select screen.
I would tend to agree. So if that's the case, then all right. So you got Jury just as a freebie thrown in, and then you also have the two other characters. So at that point, you're looking at like what 21 characters, maybe
Uh,
22.
I think you're going to look at a ton of characters, maybe not right away for Worlds, but we spoke with Shane at the Atlanta PTC, and he
Mhm.
said since there's so many Street Fighter characters that people love, and Sabretooth sort of did this where, and
Hmm.
I know you played in the Sabretooth days, Matt. He was
Oh
saying
yeah.
that they would like to create a lot of promo characters, whether characters that aren't in the
Hmm.
set or like two dots,
Right.
so they can have like a huge Street Fighter cast to get people interested,
Right.
and still continue with the Cowboy Bebop set and the Mortal Kombat set, and not get like set behind.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean,
I think it's a great idea.
like my only I guess gripe even from playing back then is that like you'll have these random awesome like promo characters that you really like. Like for example, the 721 Ken was like what got me into the game. He was enhanced commit. If this attack deals damage, your opponent discards two cards. I was like, oh, he's insane. And then he lets you play like any attack as a reversal, where its difficulty was extra less for X equals your momentum. He wasn't very good, but I loved the art. I was really excited about the card, and he just wasn't better than starter deck Ken because he had no support, you know. So like whenever you get a bunch of promos, that's always my concern is that they're not designed with the idea of leeching off someone else's support well enough. You know, like they don't interact with it quite
Sure.
as well,
I
and
mean,
and that's
that
always
could go
upsetting.
in.
But
Yeah, that could go into a design. That could go into probably the designer's mind. But I
yeah,
mean, in a game like ours where you have diversity, I think if you release 10 promo characters and two of them, 20% of them are good, you get two characters that are making top eights or possibly winning events. That's still a win because you don't have those two characters in the set. You know, so I think that's big. I think it's pretty good, especially in a game where we have diversity. I think it's nice to have a large variety of characters to choose from.
yeah, you know, and having characters that are all viable definitely will not hurt. You know, like I'm just saying, like I like when you get to play a character and their kit, and then add in other pieces as opposed to playing a character with someone else's kit, because
Sure.
normally they don't fit into someone else's kit as
Yeah.
well as that person does. And that's all I'm getting at. Like back in the day,
Yeah.
like I mean, you had
I
like
agree.
the entire set of like 16 promo Street Fighter characters, and you're like, oh, so Adon's just generically really good. All right, I'm gonna play him.
Right.
But then you're like, this other like that Ken, you're like, he's generically generic. You know, like
Yeah,
so.
which I think there will be generically really good characters and generically generic, but
Yeah.
I think there's already some foreshadowing to this because if
Okay.
you see like Jasco has made like look at the Mega Man tens. The Mega Man
Hmm.
tens had three extra characters per 10. The Endine set were starter decks with two characters per starter deck.
Yeah.
So I think that they really want to increase. And then you have the Red Horizon. So you had all those Red Horizon characters that were in the set but weren't fully supported.
Yeah.
So like it's already sort of foreshadowing that they want a lot of character choice in the game, which I think
Yeah.
is good. Character choice is important, especially if we're going to be a game with
Well,
diversity. So I
and
think it's a really good call.
and I think that's a really great segue into the next thing we're going to talk about, which was the tournament results so far from the PTC season, because there has not been a ton of diversity happening at these PTCs. There's been a couple people maybe, you know, but it's not nearly what you've seen in the past, where it's like, oh, everybody's playing Gemini Man, or everyone's playing this Broken Iori, or everyone's playing, you know, whatever the clearly the Maxima or K Dash back in the day. You know, like these things in recent even Jasco era UFS, where you still had this condensed like there's like three top dogs. These PTCs have been pretty wide open. There's been a little overlap.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Matt. I think this is a sign of a good meta. I think like like I said, I think Jasco's sort of settling into their new design. They got the Mega Man out, they got their Red Horizon out, and I think they were like, okay, we did Mega Man, we made the game too fast, and then we bring in that was just because they wanted to speed it up a lot. Then they come in with Red Horizon, slow it down a little bit. Like it's still fast. I mean, they want the game to be, a faster game. But I think the meta is in a pretty good spot right now, especially after these last bans and everything like that. If you look at the characters that have won the PTCs, which there was some talk on this about Facebook about them, ironically all being KOF characters when everyone wants KOF to rotate. But you have Goro,
Hmm.
um, Seikenso, and Psyche. and like those are all maybe not Seikenso as much
Mhm.
because like Mike Hardiman topped with it, and like it's like the Scorch Wheel game,
Right.
but they're all really unique characters. Um, they're all characters that have really benefited
Mhm.
from these new Jasco design sets,
So
which is really awesome. I think.
yeah,
What's up?
I was gonna say just to clarify. So Omaha was won by Goro. What symbol was it off of? Do you know? Was it fire?
Uh, yeah, it was a Fire Goro deck that used Cannonade. I know
Okay.
that. They haven't spoiled the deck list yet, but I know it was a Cannonade Goro deck.
Okay. And then
So,
Psy won Atlanta, and that was a life deck with, like all the life cards you would expect to see in the life deck.
it was a
Tango
life deck
Dive,
with a
Scorch
lot of
Wheels,
drawback.
yeah,
Yeah.
Kunoichi no Mai's in there. There are a handful of things. I actually got to play against that deck. And then Vegas won by Psyche, which was death, and it was asset abuse, right?
Yeah, it was uh Kevin calls it Pillow Fort Psyche. So
Uh,
he uses this card called Fort Negley. It's called Fort Negley Restored if you needed to look it up.
uh,
Um, and what it does is it's a lily card where it says after it leaves your staging area, um, you and your opponent both take the top two cards of your deck and add them to your card pool.
mm,
So Psyche can put it into play, and it's a static effect. So he can put it into play. It comes into play committed, and then his enhance is he adds a momentum. Uh, you know, he adds asset to his momentum from a staging area. So basically, like it's
when you go
it's
to
a really
attack,
good
he floods your card
defense.
pool with two face
Right,
downs.
right.
Yeah,
He floods his
that's what
card pool,
happens.
but he also floods yours. And
Yeah.
like his attack base is like Devin played with us
Hmm.
in Vegas, where it's very um, it's
So like,
very much keep your opponent off foundations. So you keep them
okay.
off foundations, you flood their card pool, and then you can't get blown up by these aggro decks.
Mm,
And then you go into your turn, you can put the Fort Negley back in,
right.
and
So you just
then you
burn and
can
pull
play
it.
Nevos, and
Yeah.
then you can put two cards in their card pool and use all your Nevos stuff and kill people.
I'm not gonna lie.
So
This deck sounds upsetting. Like,
yeah, it's really cool.
yeah, it's a
Like
cool idea. Like it's neat, but it sounds upsetting to play against.
yeah, I mean, I haven't personally played against it yet.
Yeah.
I've talked about it with Kevin and Devin a little bit. It's really cool. I'm curious to see if someone picks it up because it's obviously a good deck. It won a PTC.
Right.
Um, so um, I think it's going to gain some popularity maybe come Worlds time.
Mm,
I don't know if it's going to like make diversity battles or anything for it.
yeah.
I think it might be an interesting teams deck that people will see, and I think maybe like two players or something will play it at Worlds, and maybe they both have a good run. Maybe there is a like a one-on-one kind of diversity thing. I don't think you're going to see like four or five of them or anything, but
Mm,
I think the deck is really cool. I think the deck is really good. The Goro deck is very cool. Cannonade with Goro is a nice combo.
yeah.
Nothing to take away from Tyler. He plays his deck very well. But I think Goro winning um, has a lot to do with Dimitri in top cuts.
Uh huh.
I think it's hard to take away too much from the Omaha event since Corey made top cuts, but he got disqualified, which we'll also talk about in a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but Dimitri is pretty much in every top cuts. Like he's the front runner of this meta. Most people consider him the best character, and a lot of people just have a really bad matchup against him. And that entire top eight got off lucky by not having to, go through top cuts with Dimitri. I mean, every single person that went top cuts,
Hmm.
they knew like, wow, like I don't have to play Dimitri. Like this is awesome. And I'm
Hmm.
not trying to take away anything from the event, but that's just
Right.
unconventional in today's UFS. It's not any less of an event. It's just unconventional.
So
Like
you're saying you
in
think
majority.
Dimitri basically, if there's a Dimitri at a tournament, you're saying you think as long as his day goes pretty well, he's making top cuts. Not necessarily regardless who's playing him, but like you just think that character and that deck, like the skeleton of that deck, is strong enough that it should always be in the top eight. that what you're saying?
Yes, yes, I
Okay.
definitely think so. I think
Okay.
the strength of that deck, in most good players,
Mm,
um, most good players iterations, I think it's very good. I
yeah.
really do. I think it's very, very good. I think it will be in every top cuts. It top cuts in MCS format. It top cuts in, um, it top cuts in MCS format. It top cuts in, um, standard format. It's won one event, but it's gotten second place in plenty. Um, and then the Say deck was, Broberg being a good player, life being a strong symbol,
Mm.
and a lot of draw power, and how a lot of draw power can be kind of scary.
Right.
And
And like if you wanted to point to one thing, and I've expressed this to a handful of people, but like if I were going to complain about one thing in current UFS, it's that there's just too much draw. Like card advantage wins games,
yeah,
period. And it's too much free draw. Like I don't have a
yeah,
problem if your opponent has to work a little bit to get card advantage, but if your opponent just has to, I don't know, like Scorch Wheel is a good example. Scorch Wheel just finds more Scorch Wheels. Like it's kind of what it does. Or Tengu Dive. Tengu Dive just probably finds you either a Scorch Wheel or another Tengu Dive. Like if you're drawing three off of it, um, and then it clears itself. Like there's just a lot of free draw, um,
sure,
and there's no momentum attached to it. There's no destroy resources. There's no commit attached to it. Um,
sure,
like so. And I'm not gonna go off on a tangent about it, but I think that like if you can build a solid and consistent deck that has a lot of draw, which life has a lot of it, all has a lot of it, some of
mhm,
those cards we just named, then I think you're that skeleton as well to me always makes top cuts. Like it doesn't matter,
yeah,
and I think that's what
I
the
think
testament to Broberg's like not taken away from his victory with Sai by any means, but like I think the core of that deck just being a life deck, you could put almost any seven hand size life character in front of it, and it's kind of what Birch did last year at Nats, where he played Jiffany, and it was a very similar, missing a few pieces because they weren't out yet, but very similar build where it's just that core life deck. It's just good enough. It'll get the job done.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too. And Childers, can you do me a favor? Just double
Yeah,
check and ask the chat.
yeah.
From it looks like I'm frozen on my
Uh,
chat screen, but I just want to make sure that everyone can see and hear me okay.
let's see. You were frozen. I'm sorry. I got you fixed now though.
It looks like I never unfroze,
I
but
think you're unfroze now.
okay, cool.
I
All
fixed
right,
it.
just
No,
wanted to
it's good
double
looking out.
check there. Um, okay, so we're all good. Um, yeah, so I think that that's a sign of a really good meta. The only thing I think UFS is missing right now is just like symbol discrepancy, sort of. Um, I think that certain symbols are really, really strong, which means you can play almost any character off of those symbols,
Yeah.
and some characters are not very strong, and you're very limited in what you can play. Like Jeremy did make top cuts with Mega Man, but there aren't a lot of good decks that you can play. There aren't a lot of Earth
Right.
decks that you
And
can play.
yeah,
There
well, in that
aren't a
Mega
lot
Man
like
deck,
Scott Sunderman made top cuts with Shin.
mm,
There aren't that many death decks you can play though. Like
yeah,
Tam made top cuts with Wily, which is the
right.
sign of a good meta. It was an evil deck,
Yep.
but there's not that many good evil decks you can play. And I think this goes back. I know we've had many conversations about this, especially on air, where
Yeah.
when you get so character specific,
Hmm.
I think you're going to see a lot of that. Where like Wily is the only character that is going to make a lot of top cuts off of evil.
Yes.
And, something else might happen, but I think if there's another evil character that's going to make it, it's going to be heavily based off of support. And maybe they want that,
Hmm.
but
Well, and
um,
like the Wily
you know,
skeleton of that deck as well, because I messed around with that deck. I guess back when he first came out, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like you get this asset out and it just goes live. And it's a fun deck, but like you try to put anyone else in front of it, and it just kind of stutters its way through the game. Like it just doesn't click like it needs to. And that's because he is kind of the linchpin of the deck. Like he's what makes it really tick. Um,
right.
so I yeah, I definitely. Um, I agree with you. Like I think when you design characters, and like I like that, and that's what kind of what I was getting at before with the promo characters. Like how well are you gonna be able to cram these promo characters into this really well and thought out kit for this one character? Is it gonna work right, or is it gonna kind of stutter through the game? And
Right.
I don't know the answer to that, but that's the fear.
Sure. Sure. But overall, I mean, outside of being nitpicky
Hmm.
about like a couple of symbols, when there's still a few characters you can play off the symbols, I think
Right.
the meta's in a really good spot. And I hope that, I hope Street Fighter is a great set.
Hmm.
I think after promos, it'll probably be about 200 cards or so.
Oh yeah,
And
it's definitely looking that way.
yeah, and 200 cards is a lot of cards, and
Yep.
it's enough cards to take a meta that I think is really good right now and make it a meta that's really bad. And like it only takes a few cards,
To make something
like a
degenerative.
lot of people were really upset with the Nats meta. They didn't like they didn't like the whole. I mean, think about what has gotten banned just since that release. So you got
Right.
Napalm Man's been banned, uh, Proud Nose has been banned, Ryu has been banned, and like
Hmm.
that whole tournament was just swarming with that stuff. And I know a
Right.
lot of people want Dimitri banned, and he was swarming in that tournament. And it's just like, they're, that people didn't like that meta very much. Now I think we're sitting pretty good, and
Hmm.
I just hope the design team has done a great job with this set. I mean, that is my um, just hope. That is my hope. I
Yeah.
think I think that they've started to do really good. I think Red Horizon was a great set. I think that there are a lot of good cards. I don't think anything out of that set particularly strikes me as like ridiculously broken. I think a front runner is Zoe. I think she's really good. I think these more attacks in your deck than Foundation's decks are a little dangerous, but I think it's going to force them to design like, they're going to be like, okay, like we have to build some cards that combat this, otherwise we're going to get 31 attack decks. So
Right.
um, I think that's good. And just basing off of this meta,
Hmm.
if I had to pick a few front runners
Hmm.
going into the world's meta. Dimitri would definitely be one of them. He's making a lot of top cuts. Zoe, I think everyone realized that she was a really strong character, and now she's starting to become optimized. And
Hmm.
when everyone realizes a character is really good, and everyone then tries to optimize it, that's
Hmm.
when a character starts winning championships. So Dimitri has pretty much been optimized. I think it's only a matter of time before he wins something big. Um, and then sort of like something that was under the radar, or two characters that I think are front runners actually that are under the radar. Base has made top cuts in two of the three PTCs
Hmm.
and the MCS stuff. I think a lot of that has to do with Birch. A lot of people are playing different symbols,
Hmm.
but he's a great character, and people are
Well,
realizing that, and he's making a lot of top cuts.
he's an interesting character because the more cards that come out, the better he probably gets.
Yeah.
Because like his response triggers basically makes it so his attacks can't get damage reduction. So
Mm-hmm.
every new card that comes out that's damage reduction, that's something else that he now fights against that is useless when you
Right.
play against him, or it's something he can play and then uses.
Right.
Like for
Exactly.
example, there's a couple of the Brett cards that came out
Yeah.
that you windmill slam in there.
Right. Exactly. Just free damage pump from Ancient Knowledge? I think it's
Uh,
Ancient Knowledge.
yeah, something like that, forbidden knowledge or something like that. I
Or
don't
yeah,
remember.
okay, Forbidden
It's
Knowledge.
something like that. Let's
Uh,
let's look it up. I don't
it's
have
the
to know things
knowledge. It's
anymore.
the knowledge 1/5.
The no
Um,
things card.
yeah, but we just failed deck check. We just got disqualified because we don't know the name of the card till there's our turn.
Immortal
Um,
knowledge. Immortal
Immortal
knowledge.
Knowledge. There we go. So Immortal Knowledge. Yeah, that's a huge card for him. Shares two symbols, the symbols that are getting played on him. Um, you know, it's crazy how, you know, like under the radar character becomes a front runner. I think it's a testament to how good our game is. I think
Yeah.
that's really good. And another character,
Excuse
um,
me.
I already made top cuts with Turbo Man, and due to a weird tournament software situation,
Hmm.
Marco, a lot of people saw him on stream facing Rob at 4-0, due to some weird software circumstances, he didn't make top cuts. But he would have made top cuts if there wasn't a weird situation.
Hmm.
So that would put two Turbo Men in top cuts. Um, and I think that's something I think people thought he was like ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And then, everyone played him at Nats. Then none of
Right.
them top aided. Then
Right.
everyone was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then the players like Iari and Marco who know that he's good and Marco won a championship with him. And it's like, oh, like, no, we think this character's good and we're committed to this character. And I know Devin is really committed to him too. And you have a few people that are really committed to Turbo Man and know how
Mm.
good he is. And I think they're going to consistently make top cuts. I think that he's a really, really solid character. And I think that he's going to get optimized and, do really well. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if he won another championship. Wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Oh. Well, not to completely abandon the PTCs, but I kind of want to talk about these new Street Fighter characters.
Oh, yeah, no, that was all I had to say.
Um,
Go
so,
ahead into Street Fighter, man.
all right, so we've got two character spoils so far of the 18 or 19, I guess, technically now that have been revealed. First up is Jerry. She's 720, Air, Evil, and Void. And she has enhanced discard a card. Your kick attack is plus 3 damage. And then she has response once per game. After you play your fifth card this turn, you may discard up to 4 cards from your card pool, and your opponent discards 2 cards. This ability cannot be canceled. Um, so your immediate response upon hearing her.
I think that she is really, really good. Um, she looks like a really like solid contender.
Yeah.
Um, we know that Air has a bunch of good kick attacks. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of been Felicia's thing for a while.
Right.
I think seven-handers,
Yeah.
3 damage is a lot of damage, and I think
Yeah.
seven-handers in symbols that can draw cards,
Uh,
like discarding a card to give damage, like you don't have to lose out on your board state. So I think that that's pretty big. Like I think that that's going to I think there's going to be a lot of decks where like your opponent's whether out of resources in hand to block or out of ready foundations to
mm-hmm.
block, and then like she just plays 2 kicks at the end of the turn and gets an additional 6 damage, and that ends up killing you.
So just
Um,
off the cuff, she can run Cat Spike. It does 8
mhm,
damage for 4 difficulty now. Also adds a foundation down, which also helps with Jury's other ability,
yeah,
or play the 5. She can run Dancing Flash, which is now a 5 mid doing 8,
yeah,
multiple. She can run Delta Kick, which is a 4 high doing
yeah,
8.
and Delta or Dancing Flash,
Yeah.
doesn't it get the kick keyword on its multiple enhance?
They get Punch.
Okay.
But she can't actually use that because she doesn't have water.
Oh, okay.
It's a water
That's
enhance. Um,
that's
but she can bounce the other one back. So Dancing Flash probably not gonna make the cut with her. Um, but just like off the top, like there's a lot of like 5 damage kicks already before we see anything out of the new set, which I can only assume Chun Li is gonna at least share a symbol with her and also be kicking.
I believe, and this is my guess based off of um, other cards,
Mm,
but if I had to guess, and I saw the cards that were spoiled so far,
mm.
I I would think that Chun Li is air, void, and water.
Okay.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, she was on the air, void, and water uh, action that was spoiled.
There's a lot of characters on that action though.
Yeah, it's a bunch of chicks, and
Yes,
it's
it's the Street
like
Fighter chicks, and
Z
it's the
Viper and stuff like that.
yeah,
So
Cammy's
I
on
guess
there.
she's not on that card. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Uh,
Unless she's the dark-haired chick, but I haven't seen her with hair like that before.
yeah, I don't think
Um,
she is.
but I think that that might be your symbol spread. I don't know. That is
I
late in the set. That is set 185.
I
So I
feel
could be completely wrong.
yeah. Well, she's also confirmed starter deck character. Her and Ryu are.
Right.
So my guess is she at the very least will have air in common with Jury, which just gives Jury a whole bunch of additional air kicks. That's exclusively me speculating. I have no actual knowledge, but air has seemed to be the kick symbol for a while now. So
Right.
um,
And I wouldn't be surprised if she had two symbols with Jury. Like I
which
think
would
the
be cool.
design team is good enough to do that,
Yeah,
and Chun Li having evil seems weird.
right. I agree.
So my guess is still that she'll have air and void.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that too. So we both agree discard one for +3 damage on your kick. That's good.
Yeah, let's
But
talk about the second
the
ability.
response once per game after you play your fifth card this turn. So let's just clarify. That doesn't mean there's 5 cards in your card pool.
No.
That just means you've played 5 cards this turn. So of the 7 in your grip, you've played 5.
Hmm.
This is so good. Because then,
It's nuts.
let's just the obvious, ever hopeful. So play an attack, pick up my ever hopeful, bounce one of your things, play an ever hopeful, pull it down. All right, that counts as playing a card. Do it again on the next one. Like you just double every card becomes 2. You know?
Yeah, I think she's just such a ridiculous like you can build her like with control foundations and make her like an OTK deck with this ability. You can build her with not that many control pieces and just be a ridiculous aggro deck. Like you
Right.
can just build an air deck that plays Tengu Dive and
If you
just
wanna.
like completely go in and draw so many cards that you can just play 5 cards. You can play repaying a debt to discard cards out of your card pool to keep the train rolling,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like there's just like almost unlimited potential with this, and like the ability can't be canceled. Like somebody told me a story. I think
Uh.
I can't remember who it was, but somebody told me a story about how I think Jeremy was saying like, yeah, well, good thing I have out of your league to stop that,
Uh
and
huh.
it's like, no, you don't have out of your league to stop that.
Right.
You don't even have like the Endines cards and like um, stuff where you can negate a character ability once. Like I think the pink gi also negates character abilities.
Uh.
Guess what? You can't stop Jury,
Right.
and like when you get into abilities that can't be canceled, you get into a
Wait.
scary part of
Wait. Is this
UFS.
where we
And
say that she's the judge and the jury? Heyo. Because you can't stop her. She's just gonna do what she wants to do. Like.
but
So
you're
also.
getting into a scary part of UFS.
Yeah. Well, and also, so her ability says you may discard up to 4 cards from your card pool. So that doesn't mean you have to discard all 4 cards or whatever. It's phrased that way so that way if you don't have 4 in there, you can still use the ability. But it also will permit you to set up different combos. So like if you have something that randomly combos and you played them out of order because that was the ideal order to play them initially, you can now clear out, leave your combo piece you need to play your next attack that combos off of it.
Yeah.
Like there's all sorts of crazy stuff. Oh, and also by the way, your opponent discards 2 cards. So if they were holding on to cards to think they weren't gonna die, they're definitely dead now.
Yeah, I
Like
think it's big, and I think that there is in looking at T Hawk as well as the other character, which we'll
yeah,
get into him, but it looks like they're really trying to make discard a factor in this game again.
right. Which
And
might be an answer to my complaint about the card draw. Like
yeah, which is good though too, because
mm-hmm.
they've also made anti-discard that no one really uses,
Yeah.
and so I mean it's basically another like skill point of UFS, which I think is good. I think it's fun.
So
Um,
we're in agreement.
I
So Jerry's good. She's gonna
yeah,
see some play.
I will make a prediction though.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't think that she's going to do that well at Worlds because I think she's going to need time to be optimized. She might make it into top 16. I
Uh.
would be surprised if she makes it like top 4 in singles or something. I think she's good enough to,
Mm-hmm.
but I think time is going to be of the essence. And I think that, but what I do think is it's
Think a
going
lot
to
of things.
get to a point. Yeah, it's going to get to a point where like this character gets optimized and you're going to see her at every event and see her topping in a lot of events. I
Possibly.
really
Like
do.
I definitely like this kind of character excites me. Like I'm definitely intrigued and would like to put in some reps with this kind of character. I think that depending on um, um, it, Jeremy, they definitely said that it will be. Well, definitely said. Let me throw out the air quotes there because they said they were going to do a full set spoiler. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if the cards weren't going to be out at least a month beforehand, they do a full set spoiler a month beforehand, so that way people could have time to
Sure.
do reps.
Yeah,
So
I still
Jeremy just
I
joined us in
don't.
chat. Sorry, he was saying he was pretty sure Street Fighter won't be legal for Worlds. But um,
Maybe
now taking bets on
we'll
it.
see.
But either way, I really do like. I think this character's awesome, and I think like I agree with you. Like, so you're gonna find the ideal build of her, and people are gonna get buck wild with it. And like that response, the fact that it can't be negated, and you just get to do that, like it just feels really cool. Like it feels like you're pulling off like some crazy link combo, which is kind of what Jerry wants to do anyway.
Mhm.
So, but uh, T Hawk. Initial thoughts. You want me to read?
T-Hawk,
Let me read him first. Let me read him first. All right.
go ahead,
He's
read.
535. All right. So he's a five-hander. This is your wheelhouse. Um, and his response: commit one foundation. After your slam or throw attack is blocked, your opponent discards one card. Your opponent may flip two foundations to cancel this effect. Then he also has enhanced commit. Your next slam or throw attack ignores progressive difficulty. Initial response.
My initial response is that he isn't that good.
How come?
And I hate to say that, but especially because, I'm the five hand size guy. Um, the best five handers are five handers that can gain advantage,
Mm-hmm.
like in the tempo build game, or just like draw a lot of cards. Like Clark happened to be able to draw a lot of cards on defense.
All right.
Um, you can Surveyor to give your hand advantage. You can,
Yeah.
um, you know, like it's just I think the fact that he doesn't like his character doesn't
Right.
say add cards to your hand. Um, he's not going to be that great. And his card says your opponent discards a card, and it's like, yeah, and then people will make the argument, but like, yeah, but you have a five hand size and you're making your opponent discard cards. Well, there's also a character that does that called Cadenza, who's a
Right.
five hand,
Mm.
and he's not very popular.
Yeah.
I think the next slam or throw attack, ignoring progressive difficulty, is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think having 35 life and having um, Earth, Void, and Life is also pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because like there's a lot of life gain potential in those symbols,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think there is a chance that like you might just be able to, like play Earth or Life and
Mm.
like gain a lot of life and keep a
But
high health.
in a vacuum, that like I think that's the best because like right now we have no clue what any of these character support is going to look like. We know Jury's a box topper, so she's not going to probably have any support. But like in a vacuum, his abilities, you're saying, do not get him ahead enough to make him a competitive five-hander by himself.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, not by himself at
I,
all. Um,
I would tend to agree with you. Like
yeah,
my
it's just
my complaint with him is the fact that all right, so his response, it's not awful, but his enhance is definitely better. Like the enhance, your next slam or throw attack ignores progressive difficulty. That's good. Like it's
yeah.
gonna let you randomly throw out something that
You have
maybe
to
just
commit
kills
your
somebody.
character card though.
You
Like
do, but
not
it
many characters have to
it
commit
yeah,
themselves.
but it's your last ditch effort. You know what I'm saying? Like you're gonna throw
Sure.
out like at the end of some turn, what's your only card, your final cursed entombment or whatever, and just try to murder them. Um,
Yeah.
but his response, you are losing foundations effectively. I mean, like you're committing resources to have them not commit resources because they're either gonna discard a card, which that's a resource, sure, like that if they choose to do that. But the thing is, they get a choice, so they're just gonna flip two foundations. And I guess maybe you hit a saturation point where they can no longer flip two foundations, and at that point they have to discard. Like if they don't
Yeah.
have to flip, so I guess then maybe there's an argument there for him in a vacuum. Like you reach a point where, but he's a five-hander, so that if they're a larger hand size, they can just outbuild him. You know?
So let me break this down for you as a five hand size player. I'm a five hand size player. I know what beats five hand size decks.
Mm-hmm.
So you build at a five hand size, and your R ability, you have to commit a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Your opponent has to discard one card. So let's say your opponent is a seven hander. They can block with Templar and still net gain one, and
Mm-hmm.
you commit a foundation.
Right.
Then your enhance ability, where your next throw ignores progressive difficulty. In my opinion, the best throw decks play majority four difficulty attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're building your deck optimal, then his E isn't super relevant anyways. So, and it also isn't going to get you like, it's also still super prone to Journey West on the E, and that's a really popular card right now.
Right, because it adds difficulty. So
So,
yeah.
and yeah, it's just like that's that's just a layout right there of how to beat T Hawk.
Right.
And
He's like
it's
enhanced
just like
commit. You're
I
like
can't
Journey
lay out
West. Got him.
like Jury says I can't stop her R. So I can't really lay out something right now that can stop Jury, but like T Hawk,
You best committer.
like being a five hand size is hard. Like period. Like I'll straight up admit it. And like I'm not actually playing five hand size right now.
Mm-hmm.
I played Clark in the last tournament. I was going to get a chance to play him, and honestly, it was probably a waste. I probably could have used it better, but I wanted to play my favorite character in the game currently one last time, so I did.
Sure.
Um, it excites me that there's a five hand size character that's good with throws.
Mm-hmm.
Goro's in the game, but I was never a super big fan of him.
Mm-hmm.
And Caden's effect says non throw.
Yeah.
So an Earth five hander is pretty exciting.
So
Um,
so T Hawk bad.
yeah, without support, like
I'm gonna go on record and say even with support, like unless all his foundations are playable while committed, or like unflip, or no, you don't even want to. Like maybe if they help flip things faster, so that way he actually forces them to discard for a commit. Because here's the other thing. So it's after your slam or throw attack is blocked. Well, if you're playing throws with him, if you're playing throws, you don't care if they're blocking throws because they're still taking damage in most situations. Like
you know,
sure, there's
it's
omni
also
blocks and things like that, but like I don't know. Like I just think that that first ability, and maybe I'm short selling it.
and
Maybe it
not
ends up being
and
better.
not to mention as well,
He's got a
like
fat booty, so that's not
well,
bad.
yeah, but like, why did they even make the R like conditional? Like, why did they give your opponent a way to play around his effect? Like, period. So, like,
Right.
if you're about to kill your opponent and the last card in their hand is Templar, and they're like, wait, I don't want to, and they don't even have to be ready foundations. Just
Right.
flip two foundations.
Right.
So your opponent's like, that's fine. I'll flip two committed foundations to not discard my Omni Block or Templar to block your throw that you're going to play at no progressive difficulty.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Like I
that
say.
even made me make him like him less.
Yeah.
Dang, I'm disappointed.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, maybe his support's really fun and good. He matches a lot of symbols with the other throw characters, so maybe there'll be someone who's really committed to Seahawk and figures out a way to make it work. But I just don't think inherently that his power level is very high. I think he's a
Yeah,
very average character at best.
yeah, I would like to see support, but
Yeah.
I I have a little bit of an issue with the Jasco design team right now,
Mm-hmm.
with them not really knowing how to design five handers that well. Like, like you get a character like this,
Mm-hmm.
or like Cadenza, or like Gray is interesting. He might have potential.
Mm-hmm.
Malian, I think they did really well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Gray, I've tested him and I've become less of a fan of him. Or
Mm-hmm.
then you get Napalm Man, who is only legal for a month.
Right.
Like, so it's like I think Malian, they nailed it. They hit the nail on the head. I think that's a great character.
Mm.
But like, they've just
Well.
made like,
Mm.
it's either you have one of the most overpowered five hander
Mm-hmm.
probably ever made, if you don't count like Dan and what was that, Keo, or no, Rock
Rock
Howard,
Howard. Yeah.
like, which they weren't really five handers,
Right.
but or Galford, whatever. And
Um.
so like you have one of the most broken characters ever made, and then you get like something like this,
Right.
like,
The pendulum
yeah,
swings real hard, man. That's just
yeah,
game design in general,
and
whether it's card games or video games.
I hate that this card says your opponent may flip two foundations to cancel this effect. I
Hmm.
think a five hand size should never have something like that.
Yeah.
Like, your
Well.
opponent should never be able to just stop your ability. I don't think any character should have something like that. Like,
Hmm.
why should a character give your opponent an out? Like, they should have to find their own out. Like, so
I
I
mean, it's
think
definitely
that's
done
poor
to try to
design
keep those
on their
characters in check, but I don't disagree that I don't like it as a player. Like to me, it's like a coin flip ability in other games, or like a dice roll ability, where you have the potential of your ability just not doing anything. So therefore, it's not as consistent. So therefore, I don't enjoy it. But we only got 15 minutes left, and we have not talked about probably the hot button topic yet.
Sure.
So we need to jump
Go
into it, which is
go ahead.
deck list infractions and penalties. So, um, I am not fully aware, and you referenced it earlier, but about what happened in Omaha. But I know that there was a DQ of some sort, and I know like Broberg and I talked about this topic back in Atlanta over some delicious Zaxby's, and um, and Keenan as well. And then, like I don't know, like I think this is an interesting topic because I don't think that they've really reached a general consensus. Like there is, rules for it right now, but a lot of people either get butthurt about it or don't agree with what the rules are, or may just not even know what the rules are because they're not worried about it because they don't ever mess up writing words.
Yeah,
So,
so
so
quick
catch us
quick
up to
thing
speed.
about Omaha, Matt.
Yeah.
I don't long story short, from what I understand, Corey made a basic clerical error. He
Uh.
didn't write a card on his deck list that he didn't have.
Uh.
He wrote
The
um,
wrong number of copies or something.
this card had this number of copies and
Yeah.
it was incorrect.
Gotcha. So he put like
So,
3 and it was actually 4, or vice versa.
right, or something in that. I don't know the exact details, but
Sure.
there was this card in his deck.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote one number and had a different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think you did some research on how this works in other
I
games,
did
and it
because I,
doesn't
I think
really
that's
add up.
yeah, and I think that's a good place to compare to see what other games do as well on their competitive level.
And he made top cuts, got
Mhm.
deck checked, and was disqualified from the tournament.
Okay, so he made top cuts. So then my question becomes, did his opponent get a buy in top cuts? Like, did they DQ him there, or did
No,
they bump up whoever was like number
no,
9
they
to in?
they bumped up they bumped up the ninth player.
Yeah, see, and like I feel like that's a totally different conversation as well.
I agree. I
Like,
agree. I think this is really weird,
yeah,
and I'm gonna say a little something, and then we'll talk about the other games. But
sure.
this makes for a really weird situation. Um, what happens if this is weird to do in top cuts? I think maybe they need to do some random dex checks and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
like, let's say Corey makes that top cut and
Mm-hmm.
gets DQ'd. Okay, let's say he diversified another Dimitri player. Does
Yeah.
that Dimitri player then take his spot in top cuts, or is that player still diversified? If this happens in teams, does is the whole team knocked out of the tournament?
Hmm.
uh, or is that player just going to get kicked
Oh,
out of the tournament? And does the opposing team you're playing in top cuts know about the infraction before the die roll in the pairings? Or do they roll dice and have to pair accordingly, like the normal way? And then after pairings are done, they're told that they auto win the round.
well, and I think
Or,
all those things are case by case. Like, I don't think there's a one size fits all. Especially like as far as you're talking about like timing for teams. I mean, I think teams honestly is almost like an entirely separate beast because of the nature of how you can only
yeah,
have 8 copies across both decks
the problem
or all three.
is it is an entirely separate beast, but they redid the floor rules,
Mm-hmm.
and from what I read in the floor rules,
Mm-hmm.
they don't specify that much in teams
Mm-hmm.
besides like the 8 copies rule and stuff
Right.
like that. And it's all very strange.
Yeah.
And if he was disqualified, like, should his opponent have just moved directly in advanced, or which I disagree with. I think it's better to move someone in top cuts.
See, I would
But
I would tend to think that you made top cuts, this other person did not. If you make an error at that point, like if the game loss is what the consequence is for making that error when they do the deck check, because your top 8 is set, they do a deck check. Hey, you've made an error. You now have to pay the penalty. Then you pay
sure,
that penalty. Someone else shouldn't necessarily benefit unless it's your opponent.
yeah,
Because
and I agree with you too, Childress.
yeah,
Like, because that's a weird situation. Like,
right,
what happens if they go that route? And let's say the ninth place person was told he didn't make top cuts. There's an hour break for deck checks and dinner or
yeah,
whatever, and that guy leaves. And then now this guy's supposed to be into top cuts, and he's gone.
yeah.
Like, what? Like, you're definitely not going to 10th place. I mean, you call the guy, like, depending on timing. Like, it's
So
weird. It makes for a lot of weird situations.
right,
But go ahead into the research you did.
yeah, well, and all of those come back to because in the consequence, to my understanding right now in UFS, is that you get a game loss, um, um, and that is not what other games do
You get a
exclusively.
no, no,
All
no.
right,
You don't
you
get a
get
game
DQ'd. I'm
loss. You
sorry,
get
DQ'd.
disqualified from
Right,
the tournament.
right. You are ejected from the tournament. You're disqualified. In other games, you get a game loss normally. And when I say other games, like I looked at just Magic and Pokemon, doing two of the other more popular and larger games. I didn't look into like Yu-Gi-Oh or the other ones. I just didn't take the time to do it. If Chad, if you know what the consequences are in some of the other games, please share. But I, I would tend to think that like and Magic had a lot of like if this then this kind of scenarios as far as the deck check and when it happens, and Pokemon had a handful of them, and the consistent thing seemed to be like it's when you catch the error
Hmm.
as to what the appropriate response is. It was always at least a game loss. It was just like, in Pokemon, they give the example like if they do a deck check before you've ever played the first card of the first round of the tournament, then at that point they're just going to pull you to the side and be like, hey, this didn't add up in your deck. It has to be exactly 60 cards, and your list is 61. We need to check this and make sure that you don't have an extra one card in it or 59 or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like, so
Yeah.
in that situation, you wouldn't even get a game loss. They would just correct it before you started playing, and you would just have less time, I guess, to play your round, or the whole
Yeah.
tournament's held up and you're that asshole. But either way, it's not you're DQ'd from the tournament.
Right.
And like if you're in top cuts, let's use this example from the weekend. If you make it into top cuts and you start off a game down, that means you have to win out twice.
Hmm.
Like that's not an easy task to do for
Nope.
any deck for any player who made top cuts at any event. You know, so that's not a nothing penalty, but
Well, I agree. I agree.
yeah,
That's being down a game, especially in top cuts, is tough. And
right. It's win or
it
go
goes
home.
into another question about like when people run PTCs,
Hmm.
like as long as you're following the basic JASCO rules, your TO can run the tournament how he wants to. When I was running the Atlanta PTCs and stuff, I used Bo Tucker as my organizer. Bo Tucker does a random deck check on one match every round after the third round, starting with the third round. So, what happens if he deck checks these guys and they're in the third round and they just get immediately DQ'd and there are promos to be given out, there are packs to be given out, and
Right.
they just don't get all that? And
Yeah.
then another thing is too is they get DQ'd from the tournament, or let's say they let them stay in to collect the rewards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, then if he's still getting paired off into the tournament, that's going to just kill anyone's tiebreakers because that guy's going like he's losing every round after that. So it just makes it really really strange, especially to kick someone out of the tournament like in the early rounds. And I think
Right.
deck checks are good. And like what Bo would do, if there was a deck list infraction
Hmm.
like that, he deck checks before the game starts.
Right.
So before time is called, he pulls out a random match slip and goes, "Okay, we're deck checking these guys,"
Right.
and they get a 15-minute time extension. He deck checks them and he gives them their deck backs.
Yeah.
If their deck didn't match up, he tells them to fix it, and then they have a game loss in that game in the round.
Right. And the problem
So
is in UFS, like, so like unlike in Magic, like what Magic said is like if you're short on cards and they just fill it with generic land until you hit the
uh-huh.
number and things like that. And the problem is like in UFS, like saying you fill it with like a ult or a universal fighter, or saying you fill it with like a 1/5 foundation or something, isn't the same as just adding a land because of the nature of the game. So like
Sure.
that's where things get a little murky, and I think that's why you just have to be consistent, which is what they were trying to do now. And I think that's why either the DQ or an auto game loss. But the thing is, like, if it's just a game loss, then you have to have a way to correct it so that the next games can be played. Um,
Yeah.
and
Well, I think there's a big difference too in going to in your deck list not being right, and cards have to go out, and it's 58 cards, and your deck list isn't correct. You have to add cards, or like you have to take cards out and you're 64 cards. I mean, it's obviously very different. And the real issue I have with all this is, you know, there are so many other like issues when it comes to like, making improvements to UFS and things like this.
Hmm.
And this was something that I feel like no one ever complained about. I feel like everyone felt like a game loss was fair. Like people have messed up their decks before, you know, almost everyone's done it. Almost everyone's been penalized for it. It was always a game loss, and that was still tough. I mean, people were really like, "Damn, that really sucks. That's really hard to come back from." And I don't think like anyone was saying like no one was rallying for like, "Yeah, DQ people for deck infractions." Like I don't think anyone was ever saying that. So I don't know why it got changed.
I mean, I think it's just an effort to create more consistency. Like I said, like the thing is, like you have to have the checklist for all the different scenarios covered if you're not eliminating the person from the tournament, because eliminating them solves it for the rest of the day. Giving them a game loss means that if you don't solve it right then you're going to have to continue to give them a game loss every round, and also they're still playing with a deck that's not correct. But um, so I don't know, like we're running short on time, but I I definitely think that it needs to be um, consistent, and I I don't know, like I mean honestly, and I mentioned this before, and it's kind of when Broberg and I talked about it in the past as well. I don't have sympathy for people if they can't write their deck down correctly. Like I know that maybe I'm cold, but I mean, you have an hour from the time registration starts until the tournament starts. And in UFS, you really end up with like an hour and a half to 2 hours most of the time. If you can't write down 60 to 70 cards accurately and get someone else to double check it for you, like people don't mind doing that. Um, I feel like that's the simplest solution. Like just take an extra minute and make sure you got it all right. And I get some cards have absolutely absurd names, and they've made efforts to fix the sheets and stuff. So it's not like Jasco isn't aware of how absurd some of these things are. But
Yeah, but it's I think it's even more than that, Matt, because I was told I asked Shane about something and like
uh,
now the new sheets have like total foundations,
right,
total attacks,
right,
total deck.
yeah,
And like
that's
if
an
you're
effort to
trying
improve.
if you're trying to make it in right before and you write your deck list perfect
Yeah,
and then on total foundations you have 40, you're supposed to have 45 and
yeah,
you write 46
right,
because you didn't do the math that fast and you have 5 minutes to turn in your deck list because you woke up late and
right.
you get DQ'd from the tournament for it after going 6-0. Come on.
I mean, I feel like in that situation, if it's clearly like we added up the total wrong, but it doesn't actually affect the contents of the deck
No,
versus the contents
no,
of the list.
no. It is a game loss. I asked Shane Duckworth. It is a game loss if your total, or it is a DQ. It is a unverified deck. If your total, and if I'm wrong about this, please tell me
Yeah,
I'm wrong. But based on what Shane told me, if your totals do not match your totals in the deck when it comes to foundations, attacks, assets, foundations, if you write 46 and you have 45, even if your deck list is correct, it is an incorrect deck list. An incorrect deck list get disqualifications
why are you hitting things?
because I'm emphasizing how dumb that is.
Um, I mean, like I said, I mean, I feel like if they're gonna add it to situational kind of stuff, that's sort of like the scenario what Pokemon is describing, where it's before you played any cards, and it's not a problem. Like in that situation, the contents of your deck is accurately reflected. You're just maybe you wrote a 5 and it looks like a 6, or you wrote a 6 and it should have looked like a 5, or maybe you just wrote down the wrong number. I feel like, and that's the thing. Like if you create gray areas, that's where this gets, and it's where do you stop? And I think that's what they're concerned about. So that way, it's just like, nope, if anything is wrong with it. But even still, you have resources online. You can write your deck beforehand. Like there's so many things that you can do individually to be responsible for writing down your deck list. And I guess that's to me the disconnect. I'm like, no, like, and it's easy to say, like I've never had this problem at a tournament in any card game I've ever played in the history of my competitive card game experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really like I don't talk to other people or do other stuff while I'm doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had the issue either. I always get someone to deck check me
Right.
before I enter my
I
deck
I
list.
think I deck checked you when we were played at
Yeah,
Nats,
and like
and vice
the
versa.
thing is it only takes one time. It only takes one time for someone to have a minor error like that and be the Swiss champ, and they're rocking it,
Right.
and probably going to win the tournament because they got some hot tech, and
Right.
then judge damage keeps someone from cardboard. I can tell you, I do know how
Yeah.
judge damage keeping you from cardboard
Yeah,
feels.
and like don't get
It
me wrong,
feels
like
pretty bad.
yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't suck, and I'm not saying that people aren't justified in being upset by it, but I just I get both sides of the argument. I guess what I'm trying to get at. Like I get why if Jasko is going to be this stern about it, why they're this stern, and I get why people don't like the fact they're being this stern. But like I don't know if creating a gray area in between the two solves anything. So it is 10:01. So real
So
quick,
yeah,
let's go ahead and
let's
if
let's take 10 or 15 minutes or however long the chat wants to do, and
um,
we'll
I do
take
not
some
have a
chat.
ton of time. Um,
Okay.
chat, if you have any questions about anything that we talked about tonight, go ahead and start typing them in now. I'm going to go ahead and hit you with some of our closing information, um, and then we'll take questions for a few minutes if there are any. If not, then we'll just plan on seeing you guys next time, which is a great segue into when next time will be. Um,
Hmm.
so moving forward, we're going to go ahead and we're going to plan on trying to do between two mats on the second Tuesday of each month. Um,
Second
that's just how our schedules currently look like they're going to work. Um, and it's obscure enough that maybe people will remember it as well. We'll keep updating on the Facebook page and things like that as well. And any of our back episodes are all on our YouTube, so you can check those out if you just really get bored and want to hear us talk some more. But the second Tuesday of every month. So, for example, that means that next month
Next month,
will be
the
the
show will
11th,
be April 11th. Will be the next
right?
show, and hopefully we have a complete spoiled Street Fighter set to talk about because that will be um, I don't even 30 days. Uh, not
It's,
far from
it's a little over
not far
30.
from Worlds. Yeah, just a month and a couple days from the World Championships.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so by then there will definitely be more Street Fighter stuff out. I think there's a PTC or two in between now and then, so there'll be more results to talk about. Um, and who knows, maybe some headway will be made on some of these other topics as well that we've discussed. But yeah, I mean, the second Tuesday of each month, so that way people can remember it. And by people, I mean mostly Matt and myself. Um,
yeah.
so we don't have to try to figure out and scramble to coordinate this. Oh, we got a Rochester CCG 1K in between now and then. That's a
Whoa.
solid plug. I like it.
Yeah, that is. Oh, that'll
Dollar
be
dollar
great
bills, y'all.
because the Rochester CCG 1K will be that weekend right before our next show. So
Awesome.
we'll be able to talk about that cash money,
That's right. We'll know
and
who got paid.
we'll know who got paid and laid, hopefully.
Heyo.
Um,
Did they spend all the money they got paid to get
uh,
laid?
possibly. I mean, it's your money. It's
Yeah.
Sean O'Brien's money, so you
Yeah.
know dirty things have been done with it. Um,
So there is a chat question, which is why is Dimitri not banned? Discuss. I don't think Dimitri is ban worthy. Um, I think that he is really solid and he is good, but I don't think he's this unstoppable force that can't be dealt with. I think he's just really consistent when played well.
I
So
completely disagree with Matt Childress.
yeah,
Dimitri should be banned. Um, Dimitri should be banned on the back of we talked about character diversity and things like that,
uh,
and there are so many decks that just like will never win tournaments because they will eventually play Dimitri in top cuts
mm,
and can't do anything about it. He puts a harness on a whole deck building style of building around foundations, and there's like very few cards, like 1 to 2 cards that can stop his form from working. And in a faster game where you have less foundations, it's the same thing with Napalm Man. Like, yes, Napalm Man had a great burn ability, but just being able to axe your
it's
opponent's best card every turn is nuts.
It is not the same. So Napalm Man added damage that was unnegatable to every attack. Dimitri does none of that. Dimitri either gains 2 life
Dimitri
once per
still
turn.
gives 2 damage to all your attacks if you put uh, Dark Side Master into the
Right.
card pool.
So when he sees other cards and makes a check, as opposed to just being on the table. And
Napalm Man has to see attacks to use his enhance.
really, that's your argument?
That is my argument.
Shut up! Shut up! That is the
Just
worst argument ever. Um, he also all his attacks had burn triggers as well, so that's also more unpreventable damage. But the thing is, all right. So Dimitri flips your best foundation each turn. Okay, he's not killing you any quicker because he did that. He has 27 life.
he's
Um,
not killing you any quicker if he flips your Ophidiophobia in his throw deck.
eh, okay, he flips one of my Phobias. It flips itself anyway. Like he's not gonna kill me with one single throw. Like,
All right.
like you see what I'm saying? Like he's 27 life, man. Just kill him. Like I wish you guys sat down and played the game that Broberg and I played because he threw a lot of damage. He killed Ryu in a turn through me blocking the Kuinichi no Mai. And then he's just like, whatever, YOLO. And that's what I'm getting at. Like, you just killed Dimitri. Like, spoilers. Like, that's how you deal with him. I mean, that's you can say that about any character, but I just don't think that he's ban worthy. Like,
That's fine.
what's such an NPE about him? Like, I get what you're saying. If like he is sort of like the argument that like Paul Bittner was against five handers, where he basically made it so they couldn't play the game. And if you're saying that if you're only getting to build five, um, and then one of them's always gone, like how that stifles that entire deck archetype, and like that's fair to me. Like I think that's a fair argument against having a character who can do this on a stick. But
Okay.
yeah,
Um,
uh, Berg asks, he's like, if you want to not die to one turn kills, what character could possibly be better than Dimitri? Uh, who else just statically reduces damage?
Clark might be better not dying to OTKs.
Doesn't Goro, does he reduce damage? I don't even know. There's someone who
Yeah,
does.
he does.
Yeah, I would argue those characters are better, if not as good. Because I mean, like, and I get what you're saying. Because if he sees the throw that gains life while it's in your card pool, he just always windmill slams that in on your first attack, so all your attacks do one less
Yeah,
damage.
and he is Goro's ability.
Right, right. Yeah, no, for sure. Like don't get me wrong, he's really good. He's very toolboxy. Um,
Let him know, Kevin Broberg.
yeah. Um, right. But those cards are still really good and playable in everything else. Like I don't think like Dimitri putting a revoke, a Templar, or any like that back into his card pool wouldn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, um, right? No, I mean like, but I don't think that's ban worthy. Like I think you need someone like him to give you to slow the game down to where these decks are an option. Because people
Scott
come.
asked another question about what should I
Uh,
play at Detroit MCS.
oh,
And
sorry, I missed
Scott,
that.
I will talk to you off stream and send you some hot technology. Abyss Control. Abyss Control is what you should play.
Abyss control. Um,
Uh,
But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, to me, I don't think he's ban worthy. Like I think he's really good, and I'm okay with really good. Um, Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe next time I sit across from nothing but Demetrius all day and just they grab him by my dick and punch my whole body off. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Um, but yeah, I do need to
Well,
go ahead and wrap it
Jules, yeah,
up
you got to wrap it up. So I just want to thank everyone for watching.
for sure.
If you're interested in doing content for eCommit, hit up me or Matt Childress. We're always looking for writers or video makers. If you want to make your own video content and put it on eCommit, like we've always said, we want it to be a hub for UFS content.
For sure.
So please let us know. I think Broberg has written a few articles and they've gone up
Oh yeah,
on the site. So um, just talk to us. We would love to have it, and I'm going to start doing another special show. I am just very busy, and it's a show that I want to do with people in person. So it will be rare occasions, but I think you guys will really enjoy it when I do it. So
yeah. And I would echo those things, and I just appreciate everybody tuning in to hang out with us and watch. I'll throw this up on the YouTube channel and I'll post on the Facebook once that's up as well. It'll probably be sometime tomorrow or the next day. But the second Tuesday of each month is going to be when we're going to do Between Two Mats. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us and have a good one.
Yeah, you guys have a good night.
See you.